Hey, everybody there. I said everybody there. Hey, everybody out there. What is up? My name is BQ, and this is Pro Wrestling Voice. I am also one of the co-hosts of the King of the Mountain podcast, which is a fast-growing TNA-centric podcast where we review Impact each week on YouTube, Podbean, SoundCloud, iTunes, you name it. So this is a second edition of my weekly series called 6 Points of Impact. Now, what I'm doing with 6 Points of Impact is this does act as a preview to my podcast, but it also serves as, you might be one of those people not sure if you want to catch Impact. You know, you might have been turned away by the darker years or turned away by some of the negative things you read on the internet, and you're kind of looking for maybe a quick recap what's going on with Impact. So here it is, 6 points of Impact. I try to point out good and even a little bit of bad because, like I said last week, I don't want to come across as some TNA fanboy that ignores when things aren't good. All right, so point number one, TNA still has the ability, no matter what you want to say, to create a strong main event. Now, currently, TNA is top heavy with 6 solid stars in their main event scene. Okay. Tonight's main event, even though it was a little rushed, I talked about it this last week. I wished it would have held off on this a little bit. It was a triple threat. Lashley defending the world title against Ethan Carter III and Drew Galloway. That's pretty much the biggest match that TNA could put on at this point. I want to say this was a good match. It was a big match. It was a strong match. It was 3 big physical guys that put on a solid wrestling match, an above average wrestling match. It was a good main event. TNA can still create that big match. They might be a little shallow in the depth, but they did a really, really good job with this. And let me tell you why. Lashley not only has been a pretty protected champion, because prior to him winning the title, he wasn't on TV but, once or twice a month. He was never overexposed. Now as a champion, he feels really, really fresh. Now, what they did with this, because usually when you have a triple threat, it is a big booking mistake to have a heel and 2 baby faces. It usually works best if there's 2 heels and a baby face. But what TNA was able to do with this was to create a lot of heat and tension over the last couple of weeks between Drew Galloway and EC3 to where it really shined in the match. So the times where they got their hands on each other, there was a whole hell of a lot of heat. And that's what made this match feel really, really big. 2, EC3 tonight reminded us why PG sucks. Now, I say that jokingly. I don't really think PG sucks. I do understand why WWE does it. It's never totally bothered me. But I know there's a lot of people out there who say PG sucks. EC3 tonight, not only EC3, but a couple other instances. Opening segment of the show, EC3 called Mike Bennett a piece of shit. Now, they beeped it out, of course. But he didn't say stupid idiot or just something dumb like that, like, or, doofus, goof. He called him a piece of shit. James Storm at one point had said, I'm going to kick your ass, which, ass is not that big of a deal, but sometimes we tend to use the word butt or something real PG. He said, I'm going to beat the piss out of you. Piss isn't a term that comes up a whole lot. Now, these might be little things to people, but in today's day and age, this isn't the 80s where you could call someone a yellow belly coward. It doesn't work on today's wrestling scene, and that hurts WWE because they have to stay in that PG realm. But TNA is a little edgier, and they use it to their advantage. The first few months of the year, they were using bitch a little too much. EC3 used it last week. Tone down on that a little. We don't want that to be the obligatory pop. That's a hard word to say. And the reason I said EC3 reminds us because at one point in the main event when there was a lot of heat between Galloway and EC3, they were slapping each other on the chest. Galloway actually scratched EC3 on the way down, and he was bleeding from the chest for the last portion of the match. So, if it was the E, they would have cleaned that up. So TNA's got a little bit of edge to it. Really, really like that. 3, Eli Drake. I even got his shirt, dummy. Yeah. Fact of Life is probably the most entertaining talk segment that I've seen on wrestling in a long time. Now, the whole interview thing, I don't really like it. I haven't always really liked it. WWE does it a lot, and then TNA, let's be honest, kind of copying WWE and going with the interview segments. We started off the year with Mr. Anderson's segment, and I don't remember who he interviewed. He did one show. It was awful. So Eli Drake, if you've not seen this guy, is incredibly entertaining and charismatic. He has the reminiscence of a young Rock. He has the look of a young Stone Cold. I know I'm not bringing up his best gimmick, but the Ringmaster gimmick, like, he kind of has that look to him. He's very witty on the mic. He plays off the crowd pretty much better than anybody. Him and EC3 are in a league of their own when it comes to that. And this was I think the third or fourth Fact of Life segment of the year. He's a funny guy. My 12-year-old was watching Impact with me because she doesn't always stay with me. So this is the first time she sat and watched Impact. And she was laughing through that whole thing and the whole dummy, yeah. And anyway, this was the best segment. This was the best talking segment that Eli Drake has done this year because he had another great talker, James Storm, on the other end. The last couple times he didn't have good talkers. This time, James Storm and him really, really delivered. And that gets me into point number 4. We're going to finally get a James Storm singles push. He wasn't doing a whole lot when Bobby Roode left for NXT and left Beer Money kind of out to dry. People weren't really know where they were didn't really know where they were going to go with James Storm. James Storm recently did an interview just a couple days ago, and it's I wish I could tell you who he did it with, but really informative. He explained he came back to TNA because not only was a contract better, but it was for less dates. And he said, at this point in my life, I'm a family man, and that's what's more important than wrestling in the WWE. So, with that being said, when Bobby Roode left, a lot of people were like, what the hell are they going to do with James Storm now? Did he go back for nothing? And then he said, well, I didn't go back to reform Beer Money. So we're finally getting a good singles push with him that we haven't had in a while. And it looks like it's going to be for the King of the Mountain Championship with Eli Drake. So 2 great talkers. That should be a very, very interesting feud. Number 5. I'm going to go with something kind of negative. I was kind of going between this and was there too much talking on Impact tonight. The first hour of the show only had 3.5 minutes of wrestling. It was a knockouts match. I was not given time. But sometimes when you're watching the E, they do a lot of talking segments for the first hour of the show, but they come across like fillers. The talking segments that Impact did tonight did something for me creative-wise. It did something. It built storylines. It added on to storylines. So the talking made sense. It never felt like it was just like, hey, let's kill time. So that's why I didn't really count it as my negative. My other negative was we had a great segment last week with Bram and the Decay. If you haven't seen the Decay, they're probably the best part of Impact Wrestling. They're just picture the Wyatt family being booked correctly, or the Wyatt family with a female. They're really cool. They're heels, but they're a really, really great gimmick. We thought Bram was going to show up this week with a tag team partner, maybe not for a match, but so the feud could pick up. And there was a very short backstage segment with Rosemary and Bram. It was entertaining. It was interesting. But now with James Storm getting that, looks like he's getting the singles push. We all thought that was going to be the partner of Bram. What the hell is Bram going to do this week? Didn't answer any questions. Kind of leaves us hanging for, hey, maybe obviously they're going to address it next week, but that was a missed opportunity because I think that was for me, that was what I was most interested in, most looking forward to for this episode of Impact. Aside from the wrestling, creative wise, I wanted to see what Bram was going to do, and he did nothing. They gave us nothing this week. So, anyway, point 6, which is the final one. Hardy versus Hardy. We are getting another Hardy's match. I don't really care because they have great in-ring chemistry. I was just talking on Twitter today. Like, I'm so tired of I shouldn't say I'm so tired. I'm kind of tired of Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn all the time. But they have great in-ring chemistry, and that makes up for a lot. The Hardys have good chemistry. Every match they've had this year has been a really, really good match. And it looks like with this match, they're going to do it in Cameron, North Carolina. I think they're going to do it in that ring that they showed on the director's cut of the whole Brother Nero came over to the house. Thing that Matt Hardy documented. So that's going to be interesting. It's going to be different. It's unfortunately we're getting it next week because at first they said it was going to be in 6 weeks. But man, we're still getting a Hardy's. The feud is continuing. Some people might not be really crazy about that, and I think when they promote this match on Twitter, they're going to get a lot of backlash for it. I enjoy it. I enjoy the broken Matt Hardy character a lot. I didn't at first, but now I really, really do. His talking segment today was pretty funny. So we're getting it, and the winner keeps the Hardy name. So this is interesting because there's a lot of rumors about WWE and Jeff Hardy, but Jeff Hardy signed a contract in January. It almost sounded like if he loses this match, maybe he's stepping out the door, like his career with TNA is over. So this is going to be interesting. So I think it's one to look forward to because I think it's going to open a interesting creative door, and we don't know what that door is going to be quite yet. So thanks for checking me out. 6 points of impact. Just want to talk about the 6 things that really stood out to me from tonight's episode. If you think you might want to check out the King of the Mountain podcast, the link is in the description of this video. And we'd love to have you as a listener. But before you go anywhere, please give a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel you're watching right now, the Pro Wrestling Voice. This is BQ. Thanks for tuning in. Catch y'all next week with 6 points of impact.